It's September 2025, and September is National Suicide Prevention Month. My name is Marcus Matthews. I'm an advanced clinical hypnotherapist and the Mind Mentor. I've been honoured to work with celebrities, athletes, top executives, and I help people to turn adversity into opportunity and to truly understand how the mind works. Now that all sounds really, really good, but I've actually never told my full story on camera of how I got into this work. So strap in and let me tell you why the present system is broken and what happens when you actually go through crisis. So it's 2016 and I'm serving as a police officer with the British Transport Police. I'd previously served with West Mercia Police, and being a police officer was a lifelong ambition. I'd served in the military, had a period working in telecoms and IT. I'd worked in education and got to kind of a middle management level, but my yearning to join the police was still there. At the time before I joined the police, I actually had glasses, so that was what prevented me. My plan was always to do a number of years in the army, and then if it didn't work out, join the police, but that wasn't to be. As I look back retrospectively on my life, I can understand why I got to where I got to. And I'm going to share with you actually the truth about what led me to want to kill myself. But really, we need to start at the moment that it all began. It was 2016. I was on an early shift and I was coming towards the end of my shift, and I ended up getting assaulted. The assault really didn't bother me that much. I knew it was part of the job, but what happened was the care that was required after that made me feel abandoned and lost. The people that I put my trust in the end, ended up making life worse. You see, in that 2-year period from 2016 to 2018, as a driven police officer who wanted to lead and serve, I kept coming across barriers. My two values are honesty and integrity. And I started to get really, pissed off that those that didn't act with honesty and integrity seemed to get on. They got the promotions, they got the opportunities. But because I had standards, because I wouldn't put up with that, because I wasn't willing to lower my standards to meet other people's expectations, I guess I was seen as a bit of a troublemaker. And so I became even more isolated. And for anybody who knows, if you've served in the military or you've served in the police, actually, once you leave those organizations, it becomes very isolating. That's why a lot of our veterans suffer with mental health issues. So what happened? Well, a few weeks after the assault, I just wasn't feeling right. And I was starting to feel as if I shouldn't belong. I was pretty pissed off. I didn't think there was an issue, but my mental health was certainly failing. It had been for some years, but I'd not realized it. I've been an advocate for mental health. I'd done the mental health at work training. I was an ambassador for that. So I reached out and said, hey, I'm not feeling good. What happened was I was put through a system. I was made to feel as though there was a problem, there was something wrong with me. And as a result of that, I started to get sidelined even more. I was just put through a process. It was as if You're broken. You know, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. At the time, I was doing my sergeant's exams. And when I went for my board interview, I actually didn't get selected. And what was weird was I was told the reason why I didn't get selected for sergeant was because I presented at chief inspector or superintendent level and should consider accelerated promotion. Again, I didn't understand this. What the fuck is going on? You're saying that I could be a senior leader, but you're not going to even pass me for my sergeants. Knowing now that I really couldn't trust the people around me, all of that pain, all of those voices, all of that stuff that was telling me I wasn't good enough, that I was different, and that maybe I'm not as talented as I thought I was, I just buried it inside. 2 years later, a number of incidents happened, and I broke. Within my career in the police, I'd done antecedents for suicides. I'd done body recovery. And I already knew that the mental health system didn't work. But finally, when I broke, I got sectioned by my inspector. I went through the system and nobody could answer this one question. Why do I feel the way that I do? All the system wanted to do was to give me drugs. All the system wanted to do was offer me counselling. All the system wanted to do was to get me to talk. And I started to realise that actually the reason why talking therapies are often pushed on people is because it's not about making you feel better. It's about other people feeling better, that there's some sort of intervention. But actually, the only reason that talking therapies are as popular as what they are is because many, many years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, Sigmund Freud just became the poster boy. His theories were easier to, they were more palatable, because people like Jung and Adler were on about the shadow. They were on about understanding what was going on in the body and the mind. So we took the easy option. And you see, the mind loves what's familiar. And because talking has become familiar, that's what we believe the answer is. But when I started to ask that question, why do I feel the way that I do? Logically, this doesn't feel right. Nobody could answer the question. In fact, it was, Marcus, just get on with what we've told you you've got to do. We can't answer that question. It's not possible. But something deep inside me knew that wasn't the case. I remember clearly being abandoned and alone, judging other people, judging myself, guilt, shame, trying to validate everything, and I couldn't. The shame I felt for my family, for my wife, I cannot even put into words. I remember clearly being sat at home, abandoned, alone, on sick leave, sitting on the edge of the sofa, and this voice in my head just said, to quote Mel Robbins, "No one's coming." And something inside me said, you've got to work this out. You've got to sort this out. So I did something which I guess a lot of victims do, which is go to social media, start to rant and rave and try and pour all of that pain out. And the good old algorithm from Facebook sent me to a modality which I still practice. I'm still involved in something called rapid transformational therapy by a lady called Marissa Peer. I remember watching the video and the usual marketing call to action: buy this course. It was on Mindvalley, $600. And I couldn't afford $600. I had a very lack mindset. And I remember hearing this voice in my head saying, well, she's got a book. So I bought this book. It's called Ultimate Confidence. And in that book, was a hypnotherapy audio. Now, I've been quite interested in hypnotherapy. I'd followed Paul McKenna's work for some time, and I'd always, I guess, been interested in how the human mind worked, what drove people to do what they do. I guess it's the reason why I joined the army and the police. I remember at the start of the book, it said something about don't listen to the hypnotherapy recording until you've actually read the book. And normally I was looking for the quick fix like most of us are. But I had nothing else to do. So I read that book cover to cover. And in fact, I hadn't really done much reading up to that point. But that book really started to make me think differently about the mind. So I started to listen to the hypnotherapy recording. I started to journal, something that I just thought girls did. But something happened on day 10. I remember being sat down in front of the TV, headphones on, listening to this recording. And all of a sudden, I became the observer of the words rather than hearing the words. I became the observer of my body. I could feel this heaviness. I could feel this pain. And all of a sudden, I could see kind of in my head these white lights kind of shimmering, sparkling lights. And they got more and more and more and more. And they started to coalesce until it became this one big white light. And it was mesmerizing. I remember kind of looking around it, looking at it, wondering what was going on. And then all of a sudden, this energy, this field seemed to just push out from my body. Push out and 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 push out. And this energy then came straight into the middle of my chest, dropped down to the feet, came back up, and everything lifted. All of the anxiety, all of the worry. And I just found myself as if I was floating in space. It was as if I was watching the creation and destruction of the universe all at the same time. Now, I tell you this story because at that time, if anybody told me this, if I saw anybody doing all this woo-woo stuff, I wouldn't have believed them. I would not have believed them at all. I would have thought they were off their rocker. But this wasn't something that I imagined. It was something that I saw, I felt. I was definitely there. I remember just opening my eyes and thinking, what the fuck just happened? It led me then on a journey of discovery. And I ended up actually meeting that lady, Marissa Peer. I ended up speaking to her at an event in London. And I then went on to train with her and then became a trainer for the organization. I still work for the organization now in professional standards. And that really started my journey. So what happened after that incident? Well, I then went on to have the therapy that I now do myself, although I've expanded my toolkit quite vastly. That's just one tool that I use. But something strange happened. I found the root cause to why I felt suicidal. I found the root cause to why my mind and my body had been trying to protect me. You see, suicide isn't about killing the physical. It's about killing the programming. It's about killing all of the things that your teachers, your parents, society has put into you. And it's your soul's yearning for you to stand up authentically and say, I am enough. I am meant to be here. I am unique. So what did I discover in that moment? I was 6 years old. And I was on a beach with my dad and my brother playing with a frisbee. And I had my back to the sea. My mum was further up the beach reading a book. And my brother, being a bit of an arse, decided to throw a frisbee over my head into the sea. So I turned round. I could swim. It was fine. I wasn't scared of the water. And as I walked in to catch the frisbee, I turned round, and as I turned round, a big wave came over my head and engulfed me. That same feeling of anxiety, that same feeling of suicidal ideation was the same feeling that I found. I was literally drowning in anxiety. And actually that became the name of my book, Drowning in Anxiety, which you can get on Amazon. As my brother and my dad rushed in and pulled me out, they started to laugh. They thought it was funny. And I get that, right? It probably was. But in that moment, my mind made a decision. Your life was at risk, and the people around you who were supposed to look after you didn't. And this became a pattern. So when we look at the assault, it wasn't the assault. It wasn't the assault that tipped me over the edge. It was that support that I needed wasn't there. The people that I trusted to look after me, the police, my family, my friends maybe, wasn't there. Now, I don't blame anybody for that, because I truly believe that people do the best that they can do. And that's why when we look at suicide prevention, we're not actually doing anything about prevention. What we're actually doing is we're just raising money, raising awareness, and offering the very same options that were given to me. In fact, after I'd got back to work, I was told I'd probably be off for 12 months, 18 months. I was back in work with my taser, back doing everything that I was doing properly, and I was talking to the Samaritans. And I was telling them about this journey, telling them what I'd discovered, and that actually we probably got it all wrong. And do you know what happened? The very people that you were supposed to have confidence in reported me to my inspector. That report about the fact I was now helping people with their mental health went to PSD, and I was told that if I didn't stop doing what I was doing, if I didn't stop helping people, even though I'd declared it, that I would be reported for gross misconduct. So again, the very people, the police, the people that I was trying to help, let me down. That's why in 2019 I made the decision, a tough decision, a decision that I really didn't want to make, was to leave the police. And in 2020, Make Your Life Count was officially launched. As we know, 2020 was the start of COVID. I'd started a brand new business with no business experience. And I still battle every day to make people aware that the reason why we're not changing our mental health system is because we're still using methodologies and systems from the early 20th century that didn't really even work then. Now, that's not to say that talking therapy doesn't work. It does work. And there are certain times, there are certain environments when just letting that stuff out is useful, but it's not the solution. The solution is when you find the root cause to why you feel the way you do. In the unknown parts of your mind, buried in the unconscious and subconscious, you start to heal. You have to integrate that shadow side of you. You have to understand that the mind and the body are always trying to help you. These things that we say are bad, mental ill health, cancer, they're deemed as bad because they're not ideal. They're breaking us down, but they're breaking us down to rebuild us. But what we tend to do is suppress. When those lights come on, like a light on a dashboard, we tend to put tape over them. We tend to try and drug them. We tend to try and put them down. But if you think about it, Why would, as a species, we create experiences for ourselves that would destroy us? Our only job is to keep going, to keep reproducing. And so this September, it's Suicide Prevention Month. How can we together start to change the narrative so that in 2026, we're not talking and we're not just putting posters up, we're actually taking real action? So this is my call to you. If you're an organization that really, truly wants to support its people, let me help you. If you're an individual who's suffering, maybe you've tried everything, let me help you. Let's make the unknown known so you have the choice and the power and the confidence to show up in the world as your true self.